You draw. The first circle is the market. The second circle is the seller. The third circle is the agent. You're drawing 3 circles in the shape of a triangle. There's 3 parties in the sale of every home. I didn't say the purchase of every home. I said the sale of every home. There's the market, there's the seller, and there's the agent. And then you say to your seller, the first party in the sale of every home is the market. The market is what you don't control. It's what I don't control. We work within the marketplace. Your home is being sold in the marketplace. It includes factors that we don't control. Factors like the economy. The economy has a direct impact on the environment in which we have our top level success. It includes factors like, and notice we're putting bullet points. So you write the market and then you scribble the bullet point. You say the economy. You scribble another bullet point and you say interest rates. Are you all, just give me a head nod. Are you getting the drawing? Are you seeing it on the screen? I tried to make it, you didn't want to see my handwriting on the little whiteboard, so I put it on the screen nice and big and clear. Now, do interest rates have an impact on the seller? 100% they do, because they determine the purchasing power of the prospective buyer. And so because it impacts the buyer's purchasing power, thus it impacts the market in which you're choosing to sell a home. And the last variable to consider is competition. You would pre-frame in the seller and say, now part of what we're going to look at together today is the competitive landscape of what other homes are for sale that a buyer who's interested in a property like yours might also be considering. Do you think it's important to know the competitive landscape before you go on the market?
Yes.
And the obvious answer is, yeah, of course I do. But here's the nature of competition. Competition is ongoing. And so what happens if we look at the comps today and we see, okay, we think we can position in the marketplace here, but then next week, we didn't know it was going to happen, but your neighbor comes on market and they fire sale the list price. What do? We have to adapt. Otherwise, we're sitting ducks because the market is the conditions in which we have no control. We can only respond to the marketplace. Now, here's the magic of Bobby's framework. What happens when you talk about the market first? It's magic. It takes the crosshairs off of you. You're in the hot seat. You're getting interviewed. They're trying to consider what you're going to do for them, and now I've presented a common foe, a new villain. And now their thinking has changed. Now they're like, oh my goodness, I'm up against the market. I need alignment. I need a teammate. I need a partner. You're positioning yourself to have more influence with the seller. Do you see that? You see it? This is magic. I promise you, if you use it, this is going to work. It's going to work. It's going to create alignment and a sync with your seller. The second party in the sale of every home is, of course, the seller. And you say to the seller, here's what you're responsible for in the sale of your own home. The seller is responsible for the property's condition. And so once again, in your 3 circles, you jot the note, property condition. Now, certainly I'm going to advise you on how to make your home pop, how to present your listing in the optimal light, photos and staging and all the works. But at the end of the day, it isn't my house. It's your house. You get to decide. What we're doing is we're putting the seller's skin in the game. Do you see that this is just a stacking effect? Big bad villain in the market. Now the seller's got work to do. They need me. It's all about positioning, and the order matters here. The seller is also responsible for the terms of the sale. Now, certainly, you have some level of influence about what kind of offers you really won't accept. You can't decide what the buyer writes in the contract, but you can counter it. You can accept it. You can reject it. You can decide what concessions are offered. You can decide. It's your house. Now, I'm going to advise you on what's happening and this is powerful. I would tap on the circle that says the market. So you say, I'm going to advise you about what's happening on the market, which then creates a sense of, oh yeah, that's right. He doesn't control the market. He's just the messenger. His job is to advise me about the marketplace so I can do my part effectively. We are unhandcuffing ourselves from the elements of a transaction we have no control over. Do you see that? Now, this one's my favorite. The third responsibility of the seller is the list price. We're going to look at numbers together. We're going to look at tap on the market and what's happening with other sales in the market and who's winning and who's losing in the market. We're going to look at the numbers together, but it's your house. You get to decide the list price. It's your house. Now, it could be that some other listing agent might be coming in to meet with the seller after my appointment. Do you think sellers ever interview more than one agent?
All the time.
Yep.
Do you think it ever happens?
Mm-hmm.
So Joe, the agent, comes in after me. And Joe says, oh, I think we could totally get that price. Absolutely. We can get that price. Let's do that. And he's going to win the listing solely based upon the idea that he floated some inflated value to a seller to get them to think, oh, I'm going to get what I want. When he had the full intention of just letting it sit on the market, tick-tock, 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 and then smoke me out to get a price reduction down the road. Now, I got to future pace this. Tomorrow, when we talk about AI, I'm going to share with you a strategy called a listing agent lie detector.
Oh.
And it's going to be fun. We're going to talk about that tomorrow, but I digress. That's tomorrow. So you say to the seller, it could be that another agent might come in and might float a number at you with the intent of what we call buying your listing. They're going to tickle your ears with a number that sounds so good, you'd have to hire them. But fundamentally, understand this. It's not their decision. It's yours. You set the price. Does that feel like, it's not my responsibility? It's their responsibility. That's what it feels like, right? We call this technique dropping nails. So whenever that next listing agent comes along, they're like, hey, I think it's worth $1 million. Absolutely. And they're lying through their teeth. Now the seller is primed to say, well, actually, I was talking to Jason, and Jason was saying that I set the price, and he showed me pretty unassailable evidence that the market is like this. We reverse it. Normally it's, well, Joe said he could sell my house for this. And now it's going to be, well, Jason said the market says this. We're dropping nails to eliminate future competitors from floating fictitious numbers their way. Now, the third party in the sale of every home is you, the listing agent. You say to the seller, as your listing agent, I perform 3 primary job functions. I perform 3 primary job functions. The first job function I perform is my marketing plan. My marketing plan to generate exposure for your listing. Don't you think that's what we all assume sellers want to hear from us? They just want to hear our marketing plan. But that doesn't get them a closing. That's only the first function of a listing agent. There's a sequence of events to bring about the successful closing that you have to move in the right order with. Bobby used to make us memorize this line. Here's the script from Bobby. It's my job, as your listing agent, to expose your property to the largest pool of ready, willing, able, and interested buyers, to mobilize the local real estate community, and to cause your home to sell. And she would make us stress the word, to cause your home to sell. I don't sell your home, I cause your home to sell. How do you do that? Well, let me explain. I perform 3 primary job functions. The first of which is my marketing plan. Now, then you say to your seller, what you have to understand is, a buyer will perceive your property's value through 3 different lenses. Picture you're going to the eye doctor and they're trying to get your prescription right. So they have a lens, and then a lens, and then a lens, and they flip down these lenses until they find the right combination of focus. A buyer is looking through different lenses to focus in on the specific property that checks their boxes, the one that makes their heart sing. And part of our job is to reverse engineer who is that buyer, and how do we attract them, and how do we position ourselves to find and attract that specific avatar of a buyer. You're familiar with this. The 3 lenses are price, condition, and location. Price, condition, and location. But here's the game. The buyer must sacrifice one to keep the other 2. You can't have all 3. One has to give. So for example, if the buyer says, well, I really, 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 really want a beautiful home, condition, in a glorious neighborhood, location, then what gives? Price. Your budget's going to take a ding for that. It's going to cost you. If your buyer says, well, I've got a limited budget, but I really, really, really want to be in this neighborhood, this area, this location, what gives? Condition gives. You're going to have to settle with a fixer-upper, as is, charming cottage, rustic finishes, whatever is in the realtor remarks, right? I was talking to an agent a few weeks back. He had this listing in a prime location, and his marketing was amazing. Incredible videos, incredible photos. He left no stone unturned in terms of how he marketed this property. It was done perfectly. And he said, I don't get it, coach. I've had 45 showings on this one listing, and it's got no offers on it. And so I responded and said, well, I'll tell you what I was told. The market has rejected your listing. You've had 45 opportunities. The market has rejected your listing. Now think about these filters. The buyer you're looking to appeal to is the one who has a limited budget, but really wants to be in this location, and is therefore willing to sacrifice condition. This specific property had two major drawbacks. It had a small kitchen, and it did not have a bathroom in the primary bedroom. Those were limitations. They were condition limitations. So the exercise of thought for your seller is, who are we attracting? Who's the right buyer for your property? They have to sacrifice one to get the other two. Who are we most likely to appeal to? And how do we consider then that price ultimately reflects condition and location? It goes up or down based upon condition and location. Is that simple enough? Now I know you understand this. How effectively are you communicating these principles to sellers? How effectively and how much are they understanding the dynamics of the marketplace? This is what it means to be a knowledge broker. Last one, if I've got a limited budget and I want a really, really hot house, like an awesome, beautiful home that's decked out, I'm going to sacrifice location. I'm going to live out in the sticks somewhere. These are the natures of the demands of buyers. Now, if you say to the seller, consider what you control, consider what I control. I have the marketing plan. I'm marketing whatever you give me. You set the price. You set the condition. Marketing is bait. Price is the hook. So imagine we're out in a fishing boat, and I'm putting all the bait over here on this side of the boat. I'm just spilling bait over here to attract the frenzy of prospective buyers over here, and then you're casting lines over here. We're not going to catch anything. Marketing is bait. Price is the hook. They have to be in sync or the listing's never going to sell. Now, the second job function of a listing agent is negotiation. Some listing agents may say to you, I'm a great negotiator. That's what my skill set is. To which I would respond and say, well, how can you be so sure? Because if you don't create momentum from the get-go, if your marketing plan doesn't create momentum into what we call the negotiation high ground, then how do you know you're a good negotiator? Because you don't control the terms. You're going to be negotiating, as good as you may be, from a position of weakness. Part of the plan of us working together is to negotiate from a position of strength so that we can get the best, most vetted buyer with the best offer. We can create competition. One of my buddies in the room, Jonathan, are you in the room? He's somewhere around here. He has a line he uses at listing appointments where he says, comps don't set the price, competition sets the price. How is your marketing plan creating momentum that spills into a better position for negotiation? On the screen is a script. You can consider using it. You can put it in your own words. It's kind of long, and you're filming this whole thing anyways. I'm basically giving you a listing presentation right now. And the script is something like this. Your property is never more valuable to a buyer than the day it's listed. Spurred by the buyer's instinct to act quickly for fear of losing out to somebody else. However, as days turn into weeks, this urgency fades, and as a result, so does your property's perceived value. Your property attracts the most attention on the day it's listed because popular search platforms prioritize new listings. But as your listing ages, both visibility and buyer interest naturally decline. And here's the kicker. understanding all these factors, how critical do you believe it is to get everything right from the start? I'd say it's pretty important. When a listing isn't launched, it lingers. And when a listing lingers, the seller always loses. The seller might say, well, I'm holding out for the right buyer. Holding out for a marketing plan is hardly a strategy. The third job function of a listing agent and the final job function is what I call deal life support. Deal life support. Keeping the deal together because nobody's getting paid until this baby closes, right? You heard my opening thesis. An unsold listing is cash trapped in limbo. And too many agents across the country and the Canada watching on the live stream, you have listings that are costing you money to market them and they're not selling, and you're trying to figure out, how do I do this right? You've got to get in alignment with the seller. You cannot single-handedly sell the house. You can create the right environment and thus cause the home to sell. But it's all the workings coming together. Market Watch has data that Redfin reported on. I don't know if you saw this. This is national for the U.S. About 15% of homes terminated. They were under contract and they terminated in the month of June. Right now in this marketplace where buyers feel incredibly strapped and affordability is a major issue, we're seeing more terminated deals than ever before. And the last thing I want for the seller is to have to go back on market. So how do we prevent that from happening? Leverage. We need leverage. How do we get leverage? A marketing plan that's in alignment with the seller's responsibilities, price, condition, etc. That creates momentum to give you the high ground for negotiations, to get the best, most secure buyer, to maybe have a backup buyer, to give yourself options so that you can take this baby to the finish line and land the plane. Deal life support. I think Bobby had it right. There's three parties in the sale of every home. It's the market, it's the seller, and it's you, the listing agent. It isn't your job to sell the listing. It's your job to foster and cause the listing to sell by bringing all the parties together. And that's where folks are getting stuck. It's like she said, when expectations are understood by all parties, when you're in sync with your seller, it's the defining difference between a listing that sits and a listing that sells. Tom's been stressing yesterday, today, all of our speakers have been stressing for this entire conference to become listing dominant. You know the adage, whoever controls the inventory controls the market, is not entirely true. It's whoever sells the inventory that controls the market. But you can't do it alone. You can do it by creating the right balance of the parties working together to cause it to sell. Folks, thank you very much for this time. Thank you.